I'm Danielle Hanson. I'm a poet in Atlanta, Georgia. So that means I write. I have a couple books. I also edit other people's work and decide what gets published, or help decide. I'm not part of a team for the Atlanta Review and Doubleback Books, which publishes books of poetry by other people. So I'm going to read to you today several poems that I wrote, and I'm going to give you an assignment to write on your own. So I like to write things that I like to kind of play with the world and with the ideas that we have, established ideas and established mythologies and stories, and also just the objects that are around us. So I'm going to start with one. For a while, I thought it was really funny to take, the B-rate movies from like the 50s and 60s, those movie kind of monsters like zombies and Godzilla, Frankenstein, things like that, and combine them with monsters from mythology. So I have the zombie Minotaur, and the Minotaur, you remember, is in Greek mythology, he was half bull, half man, and he had to live in this labyrinth so that he couldn't get out and cause too much trouble. But they had to give him 14 young people to eat every year. And so other cities around, I think it was Thebes, other cities around Thebes had to send their sacrificial. Actually, Thebes might have been the youth that went and actually destroyed the Minotaur over time. But anywho, the zombie Minotaur. The zombie Minotaur is shuffling around his cell. He does not want 14 young victims. He only wants brains. These are not filling. The zombie Minotaur is wasting away, confused. Every pathway leads to turns. He walks into wall after wall. And the next I'll read to you is Eating His Dead Wife. And this came from a story I read in the newspaper about 20 years ago, so it comes from a true story. It doesn't even seem weird anymore, eating his dead wife's ashes in his cereal every morning. He enjoys being with her every day, her inside him for a change. If the cereal is sweetened, he thinks of her eyes. Bran reminds him of her navel and how like a bowl it was. He doesn't know what will happen when he runs out of her again. So the next couple ones kind of deal with the world of pets, the domestic animals around us. The first one is cat love. The cat loves his kill, walks around it in circles, nuzzles it softly, purrs into its wounds, wants to bring it inside his soft belly. Cats are just psychopaths. But they're fuzzy and we love them. Night as a dog. This is one thing I like to do when I'm writing. I like to take an idea that's really absurd, like put two things together, like the zombie Minotaur that don't quite work together, and then say, how do you make sense of those two things together? So in this one, I just decided, what if night was a dog? What would that be like? A dog steps backwards, behind itself, and disappears. A black dog becomes the night. The night is what it eats, a black dog. Night growls in the shadows. Night whines for scraps of lamplight. Night fetches whatever thoughts were flung into the winds of day. Night paws your hand, gently taking it into its mouth. The night is what it eats. Loyal night, lay down and dream, a furry body around our hearts. So for this next one, I got involved in this project where I had to write 30 poems over 30 days, which is kind of intense. It's great for about 2 weeks, and then you run out of ideas, and it's really intense. So for this one, I wrote this for a friend of mine, Katie, who also writes poetry. And I just decided to collect everything I could off the internet that has to deal with ghosts and mirrors together. Because, you have the, what is that you say in the mirror 3 times and she shows up, something about Mary or something. And then there's a whole lot, especially from like the 1800s and stuff, about ghosts and mirrors. There's this house behind our house. It was built right before the Civil War, I guess. And over the years, people couldn't afford to maintain it, and it burned down a couple times. So what used to be a giant 2-story mansion is now like a 1-story, tumbled down, decrepit building with open floor. The roof has fallen in on some parts. From what I heard, so Margaret Mitchell, who wrote Gone with the Wind, had bought the house with a partner, and she put in the money, and he was supposed to do the work to restore it. But he didn't do his part of the bargain. So she was in the process of suing him when she died. And after she died, I hear he kind of went crazy, and he thought he could see her ghost in all the mirrors around the house, so he covered them all with blankets. Ghosts and mirrors. Ghosts appear in candlelit mirrors. You can create a spirit road by facing 2 mirrors. Ghosts might get lost, or trapped on the wrong side like turtles helped out of traffic. Bloody Mary is a ghost you have to summon. You are Mary's Uber. Narcissus was trapped by a mirror until he became a ghost. A mirror reflecting sleep can make you sick. A mirror lowered into a well predicts if you recover or become like Narcissus. Breaking a mirror is 7 years bad luck. You can't become a ghost for 7 years. To keep ghosts out, cover mirrors. But they're still there, napping parakeets, waiting for you. I read this great poem by Eduardo Corral called Monologue of a Vulture Shadow. It's a gorgeous poem. He writes it from the standpoint of a vulture shadow, but also, of course, of the vulture above, kind of tracking a woman migrating across the Sonoran Desert to get from Mexico to the U.S. I made mine, because I don't do deep very well, obviously. I made mine about silly things. So this one is Monologue of a Possum Shadow. It's from my friend Annie, who really, really likes possums. You won't see me. My master sleeps all day on top of me. But when we explore, I hug the tree tighter than my master. Another thing to know is when I'm following Eduardo's lead in here, and the master is the actual animal, and the shadow is the one speaking. I'm going to start that over now that that's clear. Sorry about that. Monologue of a Possum Shadow. You won't see me. My master sleeps all day on top of me. But when we explore, I hug the tree tighter than my master. When she hisses, I laugh. When she gets scared, she curls herself around me. I poke at her to make her jump. We are best friends. I only leave her side when she hangs by her tail and I fly, or when she's high in a tree and I stay on the ground, begging her to descend. We have babies. Hers weigh her down, but mine pull at me to go up and up. They stretch me like dough to the edge of the sky. My friend Annie does puppets, and we did a project together last year, and she mentioned the first rule of puppetry, which is you use puppets to do what humans can't, in a way. I'm probably saying that wrong, but that when you're using puppets, you shouldn't just be doing what humans can do or whatever animal they're supposed to do, but puppets have to be important for what you're doing. And so I kind of thought that way about the shadows, that how could shadows act differently than the animals that they're in? And in this case, the possum's shadow could fly where the possum can't, and the shadows get stretched in the afternoon, and in a way like doe, less like the actual animal. So this next poem, I did a series of these. I think these are hilariously fun. I hope you like it. I wrote about saints, the Christian saints, especially the early ones. A lot of them were killed in pretty horrific ways, and then it's presumed that they're in heaven. And I thought it was kind of fun to picture them in heaven. Like in all the paintings of saints, you see them. They have the same wounds that they died from. Even if they're up in heaven. You have St. Barnabas, who was skinned alive, who's just like walking around holding his skin in all the pictures. And that's so that you know what saint we're talking about, when you're looking at the pictures and you're illiterate in the Middle Ages. But I think it's hilarious that this poor guy has to walk around with his skin when he's dead. So St. Agnes, there was a whole set of these saints that were basically 12, 13-year-old girls who refused to get married at various times. They usually came from prominent families, and they in one case wanted to give their dowry to the poor instead of to be married, and they wanted to serve their time in a convent or spend their life in a convent. So St. Agnes is one of those. She had a lot of suitors. She was from a rich family, so lots of guys wanted to marry her. And she refused. And so she was sentenced to be in a brothel. And they stripped her down. They were going to drag her through the streets and take her to this brothel when her body was miraculously covered with hair to cover her modesty, so she wouldn't be embarrassed. So I picture her in heaven, and she's still covered with hair. Another thing to know about her is that a lot of these saints, so that you would know who they were in pictures, so they not only have whatever wounds they died from, but they often also have some kind of symbol. And Agnes means lamb in Latin, so she's often pictured with a little lamb by her side. St. Agnes in the afterlife. Oh, another thing to know about her is she is the patron saint, so she is kind of in charge of the prayers from teenage girls. St. Agnes in the afterlife. I spend so much of my day combing and braiding. I'm not sure if I'm in heaven or purgatory. The stream of pleas from teenage drama queens is as endless as time. They worry about backstabbing friends, but when I was their age, I was dragged through the streets naked and stabbed through the throat. Try being popular when your body has covered itself in hair, and any boy who liked you, even if they were the worst, has been blinded. My head is on display in a case in Rome, perpetually grounded, but please, go on about your inability to match your eyeshadow to your shirt. At least I have my lamb to keep me company, but I often lose her in the clouds. Or I find her with the Virgin Mary, who teases me with, "Who has a little lamb now?" Through all this, my hair still grows. May it one day cover us all. So the next couple poems I'm going to write will lead into the assignment that I want to give you guys. Am I not recording? I am recording. That was scary. So in both of these, I've picked an object and made a list of things about that object. The first one I'm going to read is aphorisms. So I've come up with sayings about this, and for this series, I tended to do body parts. So this is aphorisms for the hair. So it kind of flows nicely after St. Agnes. So it's just a bunch of one-line phrases that I've put together about hair that kind of sound like sayings, like idioms. Aphorisms for the hair. Hair is a dry river. Hair gathers the wind in its mouth. She made him wait while she dropped her hairs one by one to the floor. Hair is always daring gravity. Hair is a single organism with a goal to cover the earth. Hair licks the head. Hair was the calling card she left in his drain. If hair could sing, we would all go deaf. The hair crawled away at night to camp under the couch. Hair is a nest for dreams. The weight of her hair kept him from leaving. A strand of hair hid so successfully it lost itself in sleep. The flock of hair swarmed the head as night fell. This last one that I'm going to read goes into the assignment. So I'm going to explain the assignment first. I'd like you guys to write an ode. An ode is a poem that's written kind of in praise of something. So you're going to pick an object. For class that I taught at the Atlanta Girls School, a high school here in Atlanta, we just picked up a ball of yarn we found in the classroom and wrote an ode to that. So just pick something that's kind of not too complicated, kind of mundane. I'm here in a room where my kids have been working, so you could do something like sour neon crawlers, or a plant, or I don't know. Look around you, find something that's kind of interesting that you don't have a lot of emotional attachment to. And then make a list of things that it looks like, things that it makes you think of, uses it could have, and pretend uses. Like perhaps these sour neon crawlers you could use them to fish for gummy fish because they're worms. Get it? Or maybe they're some kind of weird pasta. Or maybe they're tubes or for something. Maybe they're a string that you could use to make a really sticky sweater out of. Their colors, probably. You could do something with that. They're probably a rainbow that's been put through a wood chipper. I don't know. You can think of some things on your own. But pick your object. List a bunch of adjectives that have to do with it. Maybe it's soft. The yarn was soft. It was pink. It was, but it was also kind of spaghetti-like. It was useful for some things. It came from sheep. We use that. So once you have your list, pick a couple that you really think are the strongest, the ones that are the most surprising to you when you were brainstorming. And you can do this with your family or some friends or something like that. Pick a couple of the strongest ones. Start your poem with those, and then say, well, what does that make you think of next on your list? Or what can you tie in that kind of has something to do with that? And then put that next. And then from there, where can you go? And then just put together, you don't have to use everything you came up with. In fact, it'd probably be kind of droning if you did. But just, write for 15 minutes or so once you have your list. Meditations on a stone. Bones of air, you hold nothing. Weapon of first and last resort. Drowner of kittens. Prison guard of gems. If broken, you multiply. First tool, beauty and boredom, the cheekbones of the earth. You make your home in the pockets of children. You live in the throats of birds grinding seed. You do not float, but will dance on water if asked right. You are the home of moss, the little brother of mountains, sand to giants. Okay, I'm going to leave it with that. In the comments to this video or the description to this video, I have a way to contact me if your teachers or your parents or you want to send me poems that you write. I would love to read them. And I hope everything's going well with you. Have a great break. Bye.